Building a top-notch sales team is a lot like putting together, a championship sports team. You need the right players to really dominate. But finding those A players, well, research shows that doing it wrong costs businesses a fortune, like an average of $114,959 every year. So let's take a deep dive into how to get it right. We've got insights from the Sales Experts. They're a global sales recruitment company, and they know their stuff. So we're going to uncover their strategies for conducting sales interviews that help you spot and hire those top performers who drive revenue and just crush their targets.
What's really interesting about the Sales Experts approach is they really emphasize the importance of laying a strong foundation before you even start interviewing.
So no more just winging it and crossing your fingers.
Exactly. They advocate for a strategic and structured approach. And it begins with defining crystal clear job requirements. And this doesn't mean just like throwing together a generic job description. They stress crafting a detailed document that outlines not just the responsibilities and targets, but also the specific skills, experience, and even personality traits that align with success in that role.
So instead of saying strong communication skills, you might say ability to present complex technical information to someone who's not technical, if that's something they're going to need to do a lot.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that the sales experts actually suggest involving your top performers in this process. Get them to provide input on the key attributes and behaviors that make someone successful in those roles.
I like that. It's a smart way to capture all the nuances and the real world stuff you might not think of right away.
Absolutely. It goes beyond the generic and gets specific to the unique needs of your company and the specific role. Plus, when you get your top performers involved, it's not just about their input, it also fosters a sense of ownership and buy-in from the whole team.
Okay, so we've got our super detailed job description. Now what?
Well, once you've defined the role and who you're looking for, the sales experts recommend developing a structured interview process. They're really big on consistency and fairness. A structured process makes sure you're evaluating every candidate based on the same criteria.
That makes a lot of sense. It helps you avoid bias and compare everyone fairly, but doesn't that risk making the interview feel a little too robotic or impersonal?
That's a great question. The sales experts address that concern head-on. They emphasize that even though you have a structured set of questions, it's still so important to build a connection, make the candidate feel at ease, and let their personality come through.
So it's about finding the right balance. Structure, but with some flexibility.
Exactly. It's like having a framework to guide the conversation, but still allowing room for those spontaneous moments where you really connect and get some insights. And the sales experts recommend incorporating behavioral interview techniques into this structure.
Behavioral interview techniques are popular, but sometimes they can feel a bit overused or cliche. How do the sales experts make those questions really work?
Their approach is pretty interesting. They say it's all about going beyond the standard, tell me about a time when type of questions. They recommend crafting questions that are specific to the challenges and scenarios that actually matter for this role.
So instead of, tell me about a time you faced a setback, you might give them a hypothetical situation based on a real challenge your sales team faces all the time.
Precisely. Make those questions realistic and relevant to get a genuine sense of how a candidate would handle those situations on the job. And the sales experts have some great tips on how to formulate those questions to get truly revealing answers.
Okay, this is so helpful. I'm already starting to see how their approach can help me avoid some of the common hiring mistakes and really find those candidates who have what it takes to be top performers.
And this is just the beginning. Their insights into role plays and simulations are even more fascinating.
Let's talk about those next.
So you mentioned role plays and simulations. This is where the sales experts' approach really stands out. They believe that actually seeing a candidate in action, well, it's crucial, especially for those soft skills that are tougher to judge with just regular interview questions.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, anyone can say they're a great negotiator, but it's a whole different ballgame to actually see them do it.
Exactly. And the sales experts emphasize that these exercises shouldn't be treated casually. It's not just a let's see what you got kind of thing. They recommend a structured approach to role plays and simulations, just like with the rest of the interview process.
So you're not just throwing a random objection their way and seeing how they react.
Not at all. The sales experts recommend designing those role play scenarios to target the specific challenges and opportunities of the role. They even suggest involving your top performers here. Tap into their real-world experiences to create scenarios that really reflect what success looks like in your company.
I'm really liking this idea of involving top performers throughout the hiring process. It brings in those valuable insights. And it creates that sense of shared ownership and accountability.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the role plays themselves, the sales experts say to give candidates clear instructions and expectations beforehand. That way everyone's on the same page and the candidate can really show their skills without feeling ambushed.
So during the role play,
Yeah.
what are some key things hiring managers should be watching for?
The sales experts have a great framework for this. They break it down into three main areas: sales skills, communication style, and problem-solving ability. So for sales skills, you want to pay attention to things like their ability to qualify leads, build rapport, handle objections, and of course, close the deal.
So it's not just about whether they can close, it's about how they get there.
Exactly. You're trying to understand their whole sales process and how they navigate each stage. Now, when it comes to communication style, the sales experts say to look at their body language, their tone of voice, and their overall ability to connect with the customer in that role play.
Are they listening actively? Asking good questions? Can they adapt their communication style depending on the person and the situation?
You got it. Those are all critical things to observe. Then, for problem-solving ability, the sales experts recommend throwing in a curveball or two.
Like something unexpected. That forces them to think on their feet and find a creative solution.
Exactly. Maybe it's a surprise objection, a change in what the customer needs, even a technical problem they need to solve. This helps you see how adaptable they are, how resilient they are, and how they think under pressure.
It's like giving them a taste of what a real sales cycle feels like.
Precisely. Now, while role plays and simulations are incredibly valuable, the sales experts also highlight the importance of assessing cultural fit. Skills and experience are just part of the equation. You need to figure out if the candidate's values, their work ethic, their personality align with your company culture.
Makes sense. You could have the most talented salesperson out there. But if they don't fit in, they're probably going to clash with the team and ultimately won't be successful.
Exactly. And the sales experts have some really insightful ways to assess cultural fit during the interview process. They suggest asking questions about their past experiences working in teams, their preferred communication styles, and how they approach collaboration and feedback.
They also talk about giving the candidate an overview of your company culture and values, and then asking them to reflect on how their own values and work style fit into that environment.
Right. It's about having an open and honest conversation about what it's really like to work at your company and seeing if the candidate can picture themselves thriving there. The sales experts also recommend getting key stakeholders involved in this cultural fit assessment.
So it's not just the hiring manager's call.
No, they suggest bringing in team members who'd be working directly with the new hire, as well as people from other departments they might interact with. This way, you get diverse perspectives and a more complete picture of how the candidate would fit within the whole company.
This is all so insightful.
Yeah.
I'm really starting to see how the sales experts go beyond just filling a job. It's about strategically building a team that's aligned with your company's vision and values.
Exactly. And their guidance on involving stakeholders doesn't stop there. They also have some really interesting thoughts on how to use your team's collective wisdom to make the best hiring decisions.
That sounds like a perfect lead-in to the final part of our deep dive. We've covered so much already. Structuring the interview, asking those insightful questions, even incorporating role-play scenarios. But now I'm really curious about how to effectively involve those stakeholders. It's not just the hiring manager. How do the sales experts suggest making that process really work?
Well, it's not about just getting everyone in a room and asking for their opinions. The sales experts recommend a structured approach to stakeholder involvement. It's about identifying those key people who represent different perspectives and have expertise that's relevant to the role.
So that could be sales managers, team members who would be working directly with the new hire, maybe even people from marketing, customer service, or product development.
Exactly. You want a diverse group who can give a well-rounded assessment of the candidate's potential fit in the bigger picture. And the sales experts suggest assigning specific roles and responsibilities to each stakeholder.
So, for instance, the sales manager might focus on the candidate's sales skills and experience, while team members could give insights into their communication style and potential cultural fit.
Right, and someone from marketing could evaluate how well they understand the target market and how they articulate the value proposition. The key is making sure everyone understands their role and what aspects of the candidate's profile they're evaluating.
It sounds like having that clear framework and process for stakeholder involvement is critical to make sure their input is really valuable and actionable.
Absolutely. The sales experts also recommend training stakeholders on effective interviewing techniques and how to avoid bias. That way, everyone is approaching the assessment consistently and objectively.
That's really important because unconscious bias can sneak in without us even noticing. It's crucial to be aware of it and take steps to minimize it.
Exactly. And the sales experts have some great tips and resources on how to do just that. But even with the most structured process and well-trained stakeholders, it's important to remember that the hiring manager is the one making the final decision.
So it's not a team vote?
Nope. The sales experts emphasize that the hiring manager needs to consider all the feedback, but ultimately it's their call. They need to make the decision that's best for the team and the company. And speaking of decisions, the sales experts have some great advice on what to do once you've made your choice.
The follow-up after the interview, that's something that often gets overlooked or rushed.
You're right. But the sales experts believe it's a critical step in creating a positive candidate experience and strengthening your employer brand. They recommend communicating promptly and professionally with every candidate, whether you're hiring them or not.
So everyone gets a personalized response, even if they don't get the job.
Absolutely. The sales experts suggest sending a thank you note to each candidate, thanking them for their time and interest. For those who weren't chosen, they recommend offering constructive feedback if you can highlight their strengths and suggest areas for improvement.
I like that. It shows you respect their time and effort, and that you're invested in their professional growth, even if they're not joining your team.
Exactly. And for the candidate you do choose, the sales experts recommend outlining the next steps in the onboarding process. Make sure they understand the timeline and expectations. They also suggest assigning a mentor or buddy to help them get settled in with the team and the company culture.
That's a great idea. Starting a new job can be overwhelming, especially in a fast-paced sales environment. Having a mentor or buddy can make that transition so much smoother.
Absolutely. And it shows them that you're invested in their success and you're committed to supporting their growth within the company.
This has been a fantastic deep dive. The sales experts have really changed my thinking about how to run effective sales interviews and build a top-performing team. Their approach is strategic, structured, and really focused on making it a positive experience for everyone involved. I'm walking away with so many practical tips I can put into practice right away.
And remember, building a winning sales team doesn't end with the interview. It's an ongoing journey of coaching development and support. Investing in your sales team's growth means investing in the long-term success of your company.
That's a great point. And for anyone who wants to learn more from the sales experts, I definitely recommend checking out their website or reaching out to them directly. They have tons of resources, including articles, webinars, and even training programs specifically designed to help you build a high-performing sales organization.
It's worth it. Their insights are truly game-changing.
Until next time, happy hiring, everyone.
Yeah.
And may your sales teams be filled with those A players who crush their targets and drive revenue through the roof.